It's a process. It doesn't register say that this you have to work through. That's right.
Okay, we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order at 6:30. Let me go ahead and get a roll call. Kathy?
Kalupka,
Here.
Lomax,
Here.
Murphy here. Robeson,
Here.
Romero Lozano,
Here.
Shushki,
Here.
York.
Here. The next is Pledge of Allegiance, if everyone can stand. Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we have public input. So anyone that would like to speak, if you could come up front, close to the microphone, and state your name, and you have 3 minutes. No one? Okay. Next is Friends of the Library updates. A reminder that the first Friday and Saturday in May is when the Friends of the Library are having the next book sale at the Collinsville Library. 9 to 5 on Friday the 2nd, 9 to 4 on Saturday the 3rd, $5 a bag, and they will again be offering or making available the opportunity to do a free will donation towards the library's capital needs. So please come out, find something new to read or watch or listen to, and support the library and the friends and all that they help us with. Very good. Next is trustee comments.
The egg hunt, or the egg fucking, what did you call
Drive-through egg.
Drive-through egg.
Egg handing hours.
Drive-through egg. I'm just kidding, that's not right.
It was the trunk egg collective, I guess. I don't know. It was great. The kids enjoyed it. You know, lines and lines of traffic.
Yes.
And they even had to go through alleys and stuff like that. So it was a great thing for Fairmont City. Thank you so much.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
Yes,
Okay.
I'd like to make a comment. Reading through the board packet, I just want to commend the library on the community involvement that and the participation. What struck out was the tax preparers with the art people. I mean, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I read it in the screen. I mean, tremendous. Help me out, Matt. Was like
They told us it was the busiest, so today being the tax deadline, they told us that this was the busiest year they've ever had. Usually mid-March-ish, it quiets down. We never had a quiet moment since whatever started end of January until today. They're here Tuesday, Wednesday, Saturdays, every day, every appointment was full.
I just think it's super fantastic that this is available. Also, the ARP, no, that was the ARP. There was some about Valentine's cards for seniors. That was also over 2,000 or something like that that I read. It's great. And the other part that I wanted to point out is the city code books are at the library. So if somebody is building or something like that, I'm interested in this kind of stuff. So I think that is all great. The other parts are great too, but I think those are the 3 major ones that I wanted to publicly mention. Okay?
Thank you. Anybody else? I'd like to just congratulate the 3 winners of the election. And Ian Ashcraft, Kelly Balaco Reader, and the re-election of Kathy Murphy. So
Thank you.
we're looking forward to welcoming the new board members and thanking Mark for his service. Been a board member for a very long time. How many years?
12.
12 years. So thank you for your service.
I do have a question about that actually. The county's deadline to certify the results is when? Do you know, Kyle?
Tomorrow.
Oh, is it really? Okay. Sooner than
It's usually 30 days, but it's a little sooner. It is this time. So the reason I know this is because the Maryville library director called me because they had a tie on their election.
right?
And they had they asked me if I knew when it was going to be certified, and I said, you need to ask the county. And they found out from the county that the ballots would be certified on the 16th. So at that point, then they'll know who the winner is.
Can I say I want to thank Mark too for all the years you put in. And it looks like your mom has worked with the library before too or something. On one of the plaques out in front of our library, it says Shushki. Was that you or your mom?
Well, so my mother was involved in various things throughout her life. She was in Collinsville forever, but with the library specifically, the fountain, she helped raise money 10 years ago to help restore that because the fountain is actually dedicated to her grandfather, so my great-grandfather, who was Charles Doris, who there's some Doris schools named after. But anyway, so Charles Doris was on the board for, when it was appointed, like 30 years. And then my grandfather was on the board for 52 years.
This board?
Her father, the Collinsville Library Board, when it was just Collinsville.
So you inherited.
So he has 4 decades longer service than I do, Irving did. So 12 doesn't feel like that long when I think about Irving, but anyway. But thank you very much. That's very kind of you.
The shoe tire.
The shoe
Shoe
tire.
tire, yes.
What?
Lacer.
Yeah, the lace, yeah. He used to lace between shoes.
52.
Okay.
I don't do anything.
So moving on to consent items. Can I get a motion to accept the consent items in whole?
So moved.
Can I get a second?
I'll second it.
First is the approval of minutes. So the special board meeting of February 12th, closed session. So in reading this, I tried to go up and listen to the closed session, and the recorder did not save the recording of it. This was the second time that happened, so we're needing a new one. Yes, we're needing to get a new one, that's for sure. I kind of remember it a little differently. So on the third paragraph.
Can we talk about it if it's confidential?
I don't know.
It yet?
Can we? You can choose if you want to do it in open session. There is also a provision in the Open Meetings Act that you can go into closed session to discuss closed session minutes before voting on them.
I mean, I'll leave it to you to decide. I just didn't.
Yeah, I think we should. I think we should. So we'll just bump this to the closed session.
Okay.
Okay.
We want to pull that out of the consent items?
Yes. Okay, yes. We'll pull that out of the consent items and we'll move that to closed session.
Then we'll need to amend the motion for consent items.
So we'll make an amendment to the consent items that it will be all the consent items excluding the closed session special board meeting. So,
I think my original motion can reflect that.
okay. So we've amended the motion. We don't need to vote on it? You don't feel like?
Well, no, either my original motion is to approve the consent items in their entirety with the exception of
The
A1.
The closed session, yeah.
is how I would present. Or we can have a separate vote on the data specifically.
Jenny, are you okay with that?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so then the first one is going to be the regular board meeting of March 17th.
So, Kathy, Alexa?
Yeah, on there it says that you were approached by a patron that was surprised not to find a Valentine's
I
Day
think
display.
it was a Black
Black History Month
It was.
display.
Yep, I was just gonna look at that thing.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So that needs to be amended. So we now need to amend the vote. All right. This was a big task to complete.
It took me 5 hours to type it.
Wow, that is a long time.
So I'm doing grrr over Black History Month versus Valentine's Day. But for some reason my notes,
Are we willing to approve them with that as a scrivener's error to be amended without having to adjust the? I'm fine with that. Okay. Is everybody fine with that? Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Okay, so then moving on, communications. We've received one communication from Michael Therese.
Can I just clarify? So you want me to correct this and send this to you?
If you change that Valentine's to Black History Month, then yes, send it to me after that change, and then I'll get it posted to the website.
Okay. That I can handle.
Okay, and then we have administrative reports. It said there that you have library staff are working with Polar Air to test the pan fountain for the leaks. Who's working with Polar Air? Zeke and I are working. Okay. to you. So, what are we, can you give us any updates on what they're finding? Any costs associated with that?
No costs provided at this point, because we're still trying to troubleshoot what exactly is going on with the fountain. So the first step in testing it was to just get a little bit of water in there to see if, below where the jets are, to see if the concrete itself had a leak, and that held the water, so it wasn't bad. The next step was to bring the water level up over the jets, and every time we bring it up over the jets, it runs back into the water lines and then lowers it back down. So we had to purchase some plugs for the jets, and we got those in yesterday, and they were put in today so that we can refill over the top of it to see if there's anything around the jets that's still leaking. So if that holds, then the next step will be to actually try to turn the pump on and see what happens with the pump running.
So they're just testing everything right now, there's.
One step at a time to try and figure out where exactly the leak is happening so they know what kind of thing might need to be repaired.
And there's no cost associated with that?
With us testing? For just checking?
For having, for out, I mean,
I think there was a call out cost initially, but donor took care of that. So the library has not paid anything to them at this point.
that's great. And you've got library staff are speaking with a few different solar energy companies.
Yeah, so I've been taking point on that one to see if there's a possibility of getting a no-cost solar array. That would be an arrangement where there is a company, an individual, someone who is then able to get the tax incentives for installing the array. They would own it for up to 6 or 7 years, and then it depreciates to the point where it would revert to the library's ownership. But in the meantime, we would get discounted energy rates off of that. And continue to do so moving forward beyond that time as well. So there wouldn't be any cost to the library involved with that kind of an arrangement.
Is that, do you have thoughts about like where that would be? Is that rooftop or?
It depends on which company I've spoken with. So I've spoken with 2 so far. One of them is ARF, who initially came out and proposed a rooftop array for Collinsville. And then just today we had straight up solar come by, and initially for here, somewhere in the field would be ideal. And then we looked at the hill behind Collinsville, and there may be an opportunity to put it on that hill, even though the hill is of course a hill. And if not, then the rooftop, the flat roof would be the alternate option.
So if for the tax incentive, that they would own it, what do they get out of that other than the tax incentive? Do they get, because I know a lot of times with these solar companies that the energy that it produces, you get like a rebate. Would the library be able to capitalize on that, or would that go to the actual owner of the solar panels? Do you
My
know?
understanding as of right now is that we would be the recipients of any credits from our solar produced. So our energy rates would go, or our bill would go down because we'd be feeding into the grid and we get discounted for that. In terms of any other kinds of things like SREC payments, tax incentives, things like that, that would all go to the owner, because there are certain credits that they can take advantage of that we as a government body can't. So that is their incentive for doing it.
I have a question. A lot of people in my neighborhood are getting their roofs replaced from hail damage. How do these solar things hold up?
They're pretty sturdy. I can tell you from experience, my family's had solar for coming up on 4 years at our house, and it's been through hail and stuff like that. That's not to say that it won't receive damage if the storm is strong enough,
Sure.
but we've not had any damage to our panels.
And as long as they own it, the company.
They will take care of repairs and things like that.
I was wondering over on miscellaneous, page 3, how it seems like it takes a long time for the carpet replacement, like 2 weeks for the carpet replacement. I was just wondering.
About at Fairview Heights? Well, some of it is also that they need to clear the library out so that they can pull the old carpeting up. So all of those shelves and all of those books and things have to get moved, both to
Well, I
be
realize.
brought down and then afterwards.
Okay. I'm glad to see the mobile DMV day, because that real ID is coming up to May 7th, the miners. I'm assuming that's what the ID is.
That's one of the types of IDs that they can help with. They can help with both standard and real IDs and driver's licenses. So a lot of people are coming in for that service. The Secretary of State's office has reminded us that not everyone will need a real ID. Regular standard IDs can still be used for certain purposes beyond that. So if you don't need one, don't necessarily feel pressure to
If you
get
don't want to
one.
fly,
Yeah, well.
and if you don't want to go into a federal building.
So that is one of the services that they're helping with. And as of this morning, there was only 1 spot left to sign up for.
I took it.
You took it? Okay, so we are booked up.
Well, never mind.
I was gonna say, they said it's backed up trying to get these real IDs. How's the citywide garage sale, trying to participate in? How's that going?
Right, so we're renting tables for that to be set up at the library. I think we've had 2 people call and register so far. There is one part of the report I included that I want to highlight, and that is the Institute for Museum and Library Services, which is a national organization that serves libraries and museums across the country. They are one of the organizations that has been closed down by the federal government, and I do want to highlight that because we received some of their funding through grants and things. So as I mentioned to this board before, and for the benefit of the group, we received Project Next Generation grant funding to provide high interest programs for at-risk youth to help close the digital divide. And we have in the past also received Back to Books grants to help shore up our collections in certain areas that need a little more support. Some of our colleagues have received Live and Learn construction grants to help bring their buildings up to ADA compliance and bring it up to certain safety standards, as well as our delivery service through Illinois Heartland Library System and the sister library system to the north in Rails. They receive grants that help provide the interlibrary delivery service. So if that funding does not get resumed, then you will see an impact on how quickly, if at all, you are receiving materials from other libraries, because it would be cost prohibitive for us to try to set something up. Even with our own neighbors, it would be cost prohibitive. So please, if you are so inclined, reach out to elected officials and ask them to restore that funding, because it does impact our core services, which at this point do include interlibrary delivery.
Thanks for that information. Matt, do you have any updates?
I'll just add a little bit more to the drive-through aid hunt. So again, thank you for everybody that participated in that. We ended up with, including the library district, 10 vendors. So thanks to all the organizations for making it possible. I honestly was kind of scared going into it beforehand because we've never done this drive-through event. 10 out of 10 from me. I was super happy with how it went. I'd be inclined to do this moving forward, doing this approach for it. So just wanted to say thanks to all the vendors.
Where did they all line up at?
The vendors themselves lined up on the same side just because we had some talk about that. So we all lined up back kind of by the pavilion, and then cars started lining up down the alleyway. I wish we had a drone or some like aerial footage of how long that line was. Anytime I went and looked, I could not see the end of it.
Wow.
We planned for 100 cars, and then we had some loose, so we had bags of eggs for 100 cars, and we had some loose eggs with Canadian side. We literally gave our last eggs to the very last car, so when
It was over 100 cars.
over 100 cars, and when you factor in, cars had sometimes one kid in them, some cars had 3 or 4 kids in them. We had easily 500 make their way through the drive-through. So it was awesome.
Yeah. How was the weather that day?
Beautiful. Sunscreen would have done wonders for me though, but weather was beautiful. So.
I just want to say I'm glad someone's written a book that Humpty Dumpty got back up again.
Okay, so then we are to the March 2025 expenses by vendor, profit and loss, fund balances. What is Empathy Studios?
That is a continuing education organization that we use to provide our staff with training on how to best approach and work with individuals who are homeless, people who have mental illnesses, things like de-escalation techniques, so that we can try and reduce as many problems as possible before they happen.
I see we got our bill from Ford Harrison. It's quite a whopper.
Yep.
We well drained our legal fund.
We're, in terms of budgeted amount, yes.
I am sure that the cost per hour was not helpful with that one. That was a very high expense.
Yeah.
I do wish that we would have thought about this a little differently.
Live and learn.
You didn't know about it though. You couldn't have known about it before.
Well, if she would have shared with the board too, looking at $525 an hour, we might have
No,
suggested.
I mean the formation of the union.
Yeah. Yeah, but when the petition, got delivered and we had a certain amount of time, and
We had 2 weeks. I had to scramble.
I just wish it would have been done a little differently. So,
You could do a line item for contingencies. Just leave that. I used to do that. Whatever the case may be, it should come up.
I had a question. I'm looking at the profit and loss, but it's also in some of the others. But it's just a question about the COBRA reimbursements for $6,089.09. Who is receiving COBRA?
Katie Heaton was, but her coverage expired in November.
Right, I knew she was supposed to be done with that.
She is.
So why is it still on our statement?
Oh, I see what it did. It it didn't give you the month prior. It defaulted to the whole fiscal year.
Okay. So that won't be, that shouldn't be showing up or in the next?
On the
week?
month ends
just
now.
Okay,
Negotiate
right.
tomorrow, so it captures
So
everything.
that wasn't for this month?
I thought it was selected to this month, but it looks like it gave me the whole fiscal year.
Yeah, I just knew she was supposed to be going with that.
So looking on, expense by vendor, the overdrive was a pretty big bill.
Yeah, that had both the renewal of our ebook and e-audiobook consortium, as well as the renewal of the e-magazine subscription. So those were both annual fees.
Okay. So the e-magazine subscriptions, how many magazines is that?
Over 5,000.
Over 5,000?
5,000
Okay, so
titles, there are
yeah.
more issues of each title in that as well.
I guess I'm not as familiar with that.
Is that the information technology you're talking about, or?
Overdrive, we're looking at Overdrive on page 6 of the expense by vendor detail.
Okay, I'm looking at the balance sheet.
Yeah, this is expense by vendor.
So for information technology, because that's almost $40,000.
You said you were on the
Yeah, I'm on
balance sheet?
balance sheet, page 3.
I don't see that on the balance sheet.
Okay, maybe it's, let me turn it on the other side.
Yeah.
Profit and loss. Profit and loss. 3.
Okay, so information technology on page 3 of the profit and loss is because we have an IT company that we pay monthly fees to. We've also had some projects like fixing the point-to-point service between the Collinsville Library and the Blue House, new servers being installed to replace outdated things that weren't supported anymore. We budgeted $55,000 for the year for that service, so we're right on track.
Okay,
This is the whole year, yeah, because it's,
Right.
once again, looking at the whole year, not just last year
Right.
on the profit and loss.
right.
And we're 75% of the way through the budget year and 72% of expenses, right? I think so. Seems good.
So that was the Collinsville Library and the Blue House.
We have coverage for the whole district. I was just mentioning one of the projects that connects the internet between one and the other.
Oh, that was just an example.
Let me make sure I understand the COBRA part. Like that's an income line, right? Like we're receiving that COBRA
Income and
reimbursement
expense.
because we
It's
have
coming out
expended it.
of, yeah,
But it's a zero net cost to
it's
us.
a zero net.
If you want me to say something about it, I can. I mean, I'm looking at budget versus actuals, and for me, this is really simple. I look at which month we are in, March 2025, so this is 9 months within the fiscal year. 9 over 12 is 75%, and if you're looking at the percentage of in the last column, you guys don't see this. However, the income, most of the income we've received, so that looks good. And then looking at expenditures, if you're just looking at the total expenditure line, you should be at 75%, but the library is 73.18%, so that's under. That's what you try to do. You try to do a budget that you do conservative in that way that you try to receive more revenue than you are budgeting, and your expenditures you try to expense less than what you budget, because otherwise you have to make an amendment, and so this looks fine to me.
You're right on target.
I knew you had something. I knew you had something.
But it is our last meeting.
Anybody else on the finances?
It's good.
Okay, so then committee reports, we didn't have any finance personnel or fundraising committee, so nothing to report there. So can we go ahead and do a roll call vote to accept the consent items, excluding the closed session minutes from February 12th. Can I get, I got a motion.
Lomax,
Yes.
Murphy, yes. Robinson,
Yes.
Romero Lozano,
Yes.
Shushki,
Yes.
York,
Yes.
Kolupka.
Yes.
Okay, so motion passes. And then we're to unfinished business. First up is the elevator repair update.
So again, we have components that are in production. They are expecting, as of the latest I heard, that they will have the components, and I will have the components shipped to them potentially sometime next month. And then from there, we'll schedule the installation it's looking as of right now, early to mid-summer. I can't make production go any faster, so I don't have any other updates than that.
And it looked like, did he say that it was 12 weeks instead of the 14 to 16?
It would tentatively be even less than that.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's good. Thank you. Let's
Did you
see,
say midsummer?
like June, right, the beginning of May?
Well, that's still subject to fluctuation, so I'm early to midsummer.
How often are you in contact with MEI people? Like, do they email or call? You have a
I've
couple
reached out a
days?
few times, sometimes they proactively reach out when they have an update. Didn't reach out last week, I don't believe, because there wasn't anything new other than things are in production and that they expect shipment on a certain date. I haven't heard otherwise. So.
Do you know where it's being made
I'm sorry, what was that?
at? Do you know where the parts are being made?
I don't.
They might be late.
Okay, so next is update on the executive director annual evaluation process.
It will be done next month, as I mentioned last
Can I just ask, what did you say, how do you contact him on? The question, his answer to his question.
Sometimes I reach out by email to them,
Email.
sometimes they email me.
So it's he. And,
Okay, so next is discussion and possible action on combination whistleblower policy and anti-harassment and non-discrimination policy.
Okay, so I shared with you all by email that we don't have a draft to review today. In sharing this information with our new legal counsel, some of the things that we had in place, they didn't feel was right, so they were recommending some changes. They were also recommending that we do keep those separate because their purposes are separate. So I'm passing that along. I had some follow-up questions for them, so I called and they had to do some investigating on those questions. So I have not yet heard back a response to see if we're ready to move forward with a draft or not. But that would definitely be ready by next month. It just needed like another day or so on this time around.
So that will be unfinished business for next month. Okay, so next is new business, discussion and possible action on procedures for disposal of library records in compliance with application for authority to dispose of local records.
Okay, so as I've shared with the board, there is a procedure in place where we have an application mentioned there that was provided by the state archives, their local records commission. They come on site, they look at everything we have, all different kinds of formats, and they write this up for us to say, these are the types of files that you have, or records that you have, and this is the retention schedule for each of those things. Just because they do that, though, does not mean we can dispose of something. We still have to fill out a certificate to send to them to say, we would like to dispose of XYZ records in compliance with this, and then they have to review that and say, yes, as amended, or no, you have to redo this, or yes, it's approved, and here's your disposal date. So we've been doing this for quite some time as a purely administrative task, but it was requested that there be a chance to talk about this as a group to decide whether or not moving forward there needed to be board approval for that process. There are some records within there that already require board approval, such as the disposal of closed session recordings. But otherwise, the others are so standardized and reviewed. My recommendation would be that not be necessary. However, that's up to the board. If you do decide that that's what you want to do, you can vote on that and put that in effect. If there are any records that you decide you want to retain longer than what's outlined in the application, that needs to be put into a records retention policy so that we have some documentation to refer back to that says that supersedes what the state archives has in place.
So question, so when did the state archives, I mean, I'm just learning how this process works because I was never familiar with what could be disposed of and what you were going to dispose of, and I just think that the board needs to know, you know, you have a little better familiarity of what's being disposed of. So tell us, how did this, you said that the archives board came to the library and looked over everything that we have to see what it, and then they formulated what could.
Well, they have standards in place that they refer to depending on what's codified into certain laws or what has been established by their own administrative code and things like that.
Okay.
So every governmental body has this.
Sure.
Or should have it if they don't. And so We've had one for quite some time. It is from time to time updated. If I come back to them with a bunch of questions like, hey, I found this, I found this, I found this, how should I work that? Then they'll say, well, let's come back for an on-site visit and we'll update your application to include those records. So everything that we have should be covered by this application. And they're in groups like administrative files, annual reports, monthly reports, minutes, things like that. And there are some things that we have to retain permanently and some things that are disposed of on an every 2-week basis, like the security camera footage overwrites itself, so that's an automatic thing. And it just depends on what this application says.
Yeah, so, I mean, I've been on the board for 2 years and have never seen the application to see exactly what it was that you dispose of. So I'm very unfamiliar with that process. So, and I think as a board, it's good for us to know what is being disposed of.
Well, I did share the application with
Yeah.
the board, so you have a sense of what records are included in that. And I don't know what you would want beyond that.
Well, I just sharing that with us to where we could see what can be disposed of and what has to be retained was very informative.
Okay,
So I think that was something that helps the board to be more familiarized with what we're retaining and what we're disposing of,
okay.
so that we feel comfortable in that way. So,
Alright.
yeah, I mean,
Thank you.
whenever you go to do that, I guess, can you share that form with us?
The certificates requesting
Yes.
disposal? Okay.
Yeah, that way we know what's we can kind of look over it, because I looked over it, and there were plenty of things that, you couldn't dispose of at all.
Right.
Some of them you had to hold on for 2 years, some for 7 years. So it's good for the board to know these things. So,
Thanks.
I think that was the main thing. Any questions?
Do you want to hear a couple of comments to that?
Sure.
Okay. Since I've worked with this, the system for 20 years, also at the school district, here's the problem. On the one side, you try to hang on to everything in case one needs it could come up. It could come up that we need it in the future, okay? However, on the other side, and we used to have a basement, everything gets cluttered out and beyond. In the final analysis, if you don't really keep track of it, you don't find anything anymore. However, if you have it, then of course the FOIA requests might come in, and it's actually better if you clear things out on a regular basis and really follow their guidelines instead of extending their what is it? Their requested the retention time frames. That's just my few cents to that, okay?
And also, to be clear, we can choose, I go through every single document, every single record that's possibly included in those to make sure that there isn't something that does need to be retained. So if there's something in a record group that we get approval to dispose, but we have reason to hang on to it for historical value, like a construction grant that has blueprints or something in it, we want to hang on to that. We're not going to dispose of that. Or if there's something that has legal pertinence, that stays too.
Because I see that like the audio video recordings of any of like meetings like this, they need to be retained for 60 days after the adoption of the minutes and then disposed of. But we keep those on the website so that people can, view. So I think that's good. But yeah, it's good for the board to know these things of what is able to be disposed of and what needs to be retained.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. So, any other discussion on that one? Okay, so next is discussion and possible action on creation of and appointments to Building and Grounds Committee. So at the last meeting, I had suggested that I would like to see a buildings and grounds committee formed. We've got different needs for the building as it ages, as both buildings, yes. And I think that it would be good to have a committee that is prioritizing some of the different needs that we need. So. And we could probably, I mean, I don't know, how do we go about creating the committee? Do we need to vote on creating the committee, or?
Yes, so there would need to be a vote to create the standing committee. I'd also need a sense of what the charge of the committee is, because next month I would need to bring back a bylaws revision to add that committee and its charge to the bylaws.
So, discussion. Do you think this is a good idea to have a buildings and grounds committee to address some of the building needs?
I think it's a good idea.
Good.
Like, what kind of things would you be addressing? Like, maybe trying to catch some of these things before they get so big, like the roof leaks, or
Yeah, any of the things that we're finding, we know are gonna be upcoming repairs. Maybe they're maintenance repairs, maybe they're just coming to the end of their life. The elevator is a good example of that. Maybe also helping to budget for some of these needed repairs. And maybe looking at some improvements, even just, aesthetic improvements.
The wallpaper's bothered me for a long time.
Wallpaper on the list.
I mean, I can see that being handy, that something happens that you didn't anticipate, the boiler went out, whatever. I shouldn't say anything out loud, I suppose, specific, but anyway, and then rather than having to call a special meeting, perhaps, it's a lot easier to get your building and grounds committee to meet, to talk to you guys, and, so I think that, I can't see any harm, certainly, and I think there could be usefulness to it.
And that way we're looking ahead too, we're planning ahead for some of the needs. Instead of maybe being a little caught off guard.
Well, this might sound funny, but we're going to have all women and Ian on the next board to look. And I don't know a whole lot about building maintenance or grounds.
Yeah.
And so it would be a big board education, and
I think that it could go through the buildings and grounds committee, and then it gets they'll do that work and then it gets brought to the board. So that everything is being hashed out at a board meeting. It's kind of the same thing that we do with the finance committee, the fundraising committee.
I see your point, Kathy, but if I'm doing my job correctly, if a contractor's doing their job correctly, we should be able to explain something in a way that helps the committee understand what's being asked, what needs to be done, help with considerations. So it may be a learning curve, but I don't think it's insurmountable. I didn't go to school to learn building management.
I know. I've been a preschool director. The building is a big part of the job.
It's a big.
And I don't know, I guess I just
I'm with you, Kathy. I
wonder
feel the
about
same
you
way.
and Zeke. And, I can see both points, I guess. But
I just think it would be good to prioritize, start getting some of these different needs prioritized and then start working towards, maybe the budget numbers too. So,
I like it and I want to be on it if that's, if it goes through.
Well, can I get a motion to create a building and grounds committee?
I'll make a motion.
Okay, can I get a
I
second?
will second that.
Okay, do a roll call vote.
Robison,
Yes.
Romero Lozano,
No.
Shushki,
Yes.
York,
Yes.
Kalupka,
Yes.
Lomax.
Yes.
Murphy, no, but it passes.
Motion passes. Okay, so what do you need from us?
So the first thing would be to decide appointments to the committee, which you can either do now if there's a volunteer, or next month as part of the seating of the new board. The committees will need to be reassigned.
I think we
anyway.
should just
That's
hold
fine.
off till
Okay.
next month. Yeah.
In that case, then I will need a sense as to what to put into the bylaws as the charge of the committee.
Okay.
So right now we've been talking very broadly about building and grounds, but what particular kinds of things are the committee going to be?
Engaged.
Yeah.
I would think addressing, prioritizing the needs of the library as it pertains to maintenance. And then also looking at, any of the other needs that are maybe not quite as a big priority.
So prioritization of building and ground needs. A recommendation to say, time sensitive, unbudgeted building and grounds matters until it can be approved by the full board, something along those lines.
We could be, yeah. So what are you gonna do? You're gonna put this into a bylaw, so then at the next month?
Right, so the bylaws list the previous three standing committees and what their charges are, so I would need to be able to draft something to go in there to be adopted next month.
Okay. Because I know you have given us a list of different prioritized, you know,
A little bit of
needs
everything.
and, yeah, so kind of working off of that list to try and see what needs to be addressed quickly, what can go on the back burner.
What needs more planning?
Yes,
Yep.
what needs more planning, what needs, you know, is gonna be a bigger financial burden that we can kind of look at some either fundraising or, you know, budgetary numbers. Okay, so, let's see. Next one is discussion and possible action on legal action regarding damage to the Fairmont City Library's field.
I think quite a few of you had a gander at that
Yeah.
before coming in. The trucking company across the street drove into our field and left some pretty
A
sizable,
mess.
pretty sizable ruts. In addition to along the sidewalk, you can see where they normally hit their wheels over the edge into our property as well. Matt tried to go over there and request that they help with the repair of the big ruts. And was given both the runaround and ultimate no. Some of them said, well, that wasn't our fault, and some of them that he spoke with said, oh, well, that truck isn't ours, and it got stuck in there for a couple, we had to tow it out, so they were conflicting anyway. Long and short of it is, they didn't want to do anything. When confronted with the video footage of their vehicle doing that, their solution was to throw rock into the ruts and cover it with grass and call it a day. And that doesn't work for us, because you know, do things in that field.
Well, if they were willing to put rock in there, aren't they willing to put dirt in there and
Well,
put some
one
grass
would
seed
think,
on there?
but they didn't want to do that.
I mean,
so.
Dirt would be cheaper
Dirt
than
and grass is
rock.
cheaper.
Yeah. I mean, do you think that they might cooperate with something like that? Matt?
Did you,
Based on my experience with them for the first time a week or two ago, probably not.
I mean,
Put it kindly.
it doesn't look that bad. I walked out there and I mean,
Which,
it didn't look that
Which
incredibly
trucking
bad. If they could put,
oh, JD?
they could put some dirt and some grass seed and I think it would be fun.
Take Eleanor with you.
Well, someone, I want to say, yeah, go ahead, Uda.
did you guys file a police report?
We did.
Okay, good.
They questioned when they came out and took pictures, they said there's enough damage to be considered a felony charge to be pursued, so.
Okay.
And they've also said, what are they talking about? We've seen them drive over here.
They told me there was a truck that was off the curb that morning when I talked with them, so.
So,
And
we
you
definitely
talked
know
to
we're on the right side here.
the, right?
Oh, you talked to the owner already? Okay.
I think it was Kathy Kaluta I was speaking with, suggested maybe we could approach our legal counsel about sending them a letter saying if you don't repair it, then we'll pursue legal action as kind of an intermediate step. I don't know if that's something that you all want to discuss, but that could potentially get an outcome.
Especially including the police report. I mean,
Excellent idea.
That's probably a good first step.
Yeah.
And I mean, suggesting that they put dirt instead of rock and grass seed.
Yeah.
I mean, it's,
Actually, you could get some estimates from some landscape company.
We have,
Send them along with the lawyer's letter and then see what happens.
yeah.
so since that would involve some sort of legal action, I think the board should vote on that step so that it's on record as being the first step before escalation.
Okay.
Do you feel kind of like would be close to spending what we would on legal fees, even if it's just a letter, if it's 2 hours of legal work, say?
As much as to fix
Does
the
the-
grounds.
Repair costs would be?
Well,
The
look at
least expensive cost we've received for repairs is around 1,100. So if attorney's fees are, you know, up
500.
at high end 250 an hour, then that's 500 for that letter.
I wouldn't think it would take 2 hours to write a letter though.
I would hope not.
I would think not. I think that they could draft a pretty quick letter.
Hope.
I mean, I think that grass or dirt and grass seed, it would solve the problem. I can't imagine that it
I
would
would have
solve
been
even
happy with that.
$1,100 worth of work.
Well, for all of the ruts and,
Yeah.
So they have been driving on the grass for a long time, but the
You can- well, you can
mud
see-
ruts are new.
They'll hop the curb when they're backing their trucks into the bay, so
that's
they
the
will
part
hop
that's
the
down to
curb.
dirt by the sidewalk.
But then, it was actually Martin Luther King Jr. Day, so it was going back to on January 20th. When we were closed, we didn't know. A truck actually went, and when he went to straighten out to get into the bay, he pulled
All the way in.
halfway, I mean, the entire truck and trailer were in our field. So there's ruts that are a good 20 feet in our field.
And
And he was stuck there for about an hour and a half until they had a big semi-tow truck come pull him out.
do you think this type of action will keep them from ever doing it again?
Will you discuss putting some shrubs up there or?
They originally had told me that they had contacted the city to put a barrier, to put a, you know, like
Bumpers.
a wall barrier right there, and the city is unresponsive. When I contacted the city, they told me that there's not much room on their end from what they could see, that it's almost exclusively library property, so of course the city's not gonna put anything up there when it's not theirs. to stop the trucks from doing
So we would need to put up a post or something?
Initially, I was thinking we could do some sort of a hedge or road.
Except where they might just drive right
Well,
over that. I mean,
You know, now that there's security cameras that
stones,
show it
you know,
though,
they,
so.
yeah, stones, it doesn't even have to be a wall, but just
A
something,
big rock?
yeah, the big rocks to line where they're going there, that way they're not gonna run into those.
$35 for 205 rock. I bought one. It's a rock.
Yeah, so,
It's not that big.
I would not think that a letter from the lawyer would be very expensive. I don't think it would take very much time to draft a quick letter to send to them. Do we want to go ahead and vote on having the lawyer send a letter? Okay, so can I get a motion to allow for our legal counsel to send a letter requesting that they comply with the repairs to the damage that we've done, the trucking.
I will make a motion.
Okay, can we get a second?
I'll second it.
Matt, are you good? Are you good? Are you
Yeah,
okay?
yeah, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
absolutely. Sorry.
Okay, no, you're fine. Just making sure.
Okay. Murphy, yes. Robison,
Yes.
Romero Lozano. Romero
Yes.
Lozano. Shushki,
Yes.
York,
Yes.
Kolupka,
Yes.
Lomax.
Yes. So motion passes. Okay, so next one is review of serving our public 4.0, chapter 6, and that is on safety.
As far as cruising, I was wondering, do you guys ever have like drills? Yeah. Like during your training or staff trainings and stuff? Okay, I figured.
Yeah, we review, tornado, fire, active assailant, we do fire. Oh, I feel like there's another one or two in there, but we do
Tornado,
those every year.
Do you guys have Narcan?
We do.
Good. Okay.
Do you have an AED?
We do. In the building. Yeah, all staff also are certified in CPR and AED use. Some also have first aid certification. I feel like you're wanting to say something, Luda.
Yes, I read through this, I thought it was very extensive. I was looking for a first aid kit and it's in there, okay, but I had to go back and find it after the knockdown, that is mentioned, but I wouldn't know what to add.
Yeah, and we do have first aid kits
It's,
at each of our service areas.
it's in the document.
Hi. Anybody else? No? Okay. Can I get a motion to adjourn or?
We were going into closed session.
Yeah.
Oh, I see what
I
you're saying.
got,
I'm
yeah,
sorry.
to adjourn our open session to go into closed session.
I'll make a motion to adjourn, to go into closed.
Do we have a second?
Adjourn.
I'll second it.
So the motion does need to include the purpose for
Okay.
going into closed session. So in this case, it would be for the discussion of closed session minutes.
Do we need a voice?
Did
voice
you
vote?
get a second?
I second.
Okay.
Do we need a voice vote?
Roll call, please.
Roll, oh, I'm sorry, I meant roll call. Shushki,
Yes.
York,
Yes.
Kolupka,
Yes.
Lomax,
Yeah.
Murphy, yes. Robison,
Yes.
Romero Lozano.
Yes.
Okay, so
And you don't have to leave.
pass.
You're welcome.
Want to.
I get it.
Why would you go to the
I wanted to, like, it was
Seven.
What are they supposed to be for?
what's weird is public bodies, I would say, when they go to closed session, because like the school board is starting to do that occasionally, they'll stay
Yeah.
and like sort of expect me to leave if I'm when they go into close.
Oh, okay, so they.
And so I just leave because I
They
don't
send you to
But we
the
make-
want to think. Well, I just gotta leave. But like, I think the public body should have to go to another room
So the
if the
first,
public wants to stay.
Yeah, we received these our cap in November and December, and we got updated for that.
Yeah,
I haven't yet received a date for the first.
right. I think the public body should have to go to a separate space if it's feasible, rather than making the public like go stand outside and come back into the meeting room. So we have several meeting rooms back there where we used to go to do closed session. And if people leave, then I think it's fine. But if someone doesn't want to leave, I think it's difficult to ask the
Okay,
public.
so
don't think Ben's doing
if
it.
someone doesn't want to leave, then you're wanting us to leave.
Yes.
Okay, I get what you're saying. Made the motion, can we get a second?
I'll say.
You're a second.
Who seconded it?
Oh, she wanted to say, no, go ahead.
No, who seconded it?
Who did it?
Buddha.
Okay, second.
I wanted them to have one more, and I'm all misty-eyed down here, so.
Okay, Kalutka,
Yes.
Lomax.
Yes.
Murphy, yes. Robison,
Yes.
Romero Lozana,
Here, yes.
Shushki,
Yes.
York.
Yes.
Okay, so motion passes, so can I get a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to.
Okay, you guys have to speak up a little bit, because your two voices sound a lot alike if I'm not looking at you.
Oh, okay, so I'll make the motion to adjourn
Okay, Romero,
7:56.
motion
Can I get a
and
second?
Oh, I'll second. I thought you were seconding, I'm sorry.
to adjourn. Voice vote, all in favor say
Aye.
Aye. Aye. And 7:57, and we are adjourned. There we go.